Welcome to the Inflow podcast. I am your host, Michelle Bosch. I see a gaping hole across society that focuses on the outer work and forgets about the inner work, when what we really need is to bridge the gap between prosperity and spirituality to live a life in flow, with inflows of light, inflows of cash, inflows of creativity, inflows of grace in our lives. Each week, join me for powerful messages and interviews that will leave you inspired and ready to step into flow in your higher work. So now, let's go. Welcome to the Inflow podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Bosch. I'm very, very excited. This morning, I would say, or early afternoon here at the time of this recording, to have an amazing lady with me today on the podcast. Her name is Margy Feldhuhn, right? Am I pronouncing this properly?
Yes.
Welcome, Margy. So Margy is the co-owner of the leading podcast agency, Interview Connections. They have been doing now this, for quite a few years now. You guys were pretty much some of the pioneers of this industry. And although, Margy is excited and looking into land flipping, and becoming, a land investor. She's also invested with us in our apartment syndications in the past. But I'm very fascinated with your entrepreneurial journey so far. You came from the nonprofit world and now, into the profit world and just how, things have shifted for you as an entrepreneur in your journey right now so far, growing your business into a 7-figure business, which is incredible. You and Jess, I look up to you guys so much. You're so inspiring. So thank you for coming along and talking entrepreneurship with me today, talking money, talking faith, talking grace, and just being open to share some of your experiences with us. So welcome, Margy.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for saying that, because I look up to you and Jack so much. You are both so incredible. Having been in multiple masterminds with you, I know how brilliant you are. I know what's happening behind the scenes. And I'm just how are they doing this? This is so brilliant. So that coming from you, that means so much.
Thank you so much, Margy. So just for our listeners to kind of get an impression about, who you are and how you came to be, how did you grow up around money and from that to being now the co-owner of the leading, podcast booking agency? How did that all happen?
I love that you're asking about money right away. I'm obsessed with money, and not just in a counting my money in I'm greedy type of way.
No, although I totally get it. And you know what? I'm always about money, because money, it can be a matter of the heart if you make it so, you know what I mean? For sure. So go for it.
Yes. Yeah. And I think those narratives around even the idea, what I just said, that it's greedy to money. I mean, that's my programming from mainstream. Why is it greedy to love money? Because you're right. Money is energy. It just amplifies what you're already doing. Mm-hmm. And that exchange of energy is so exciting. And what I love about money and money goals and personal income goals and revenue goals is it's not just the money. Yes, you get freedom, which is what we all want. And the more money you have, the more freedom you have to live how you want, to do what you want. But it's more, but it's more I'm obsessed with personal development and seeing how much I can grow as a person and getting to new levels and being this is crazy. And I love personal development, and it's who you become at those different levels. That's what lights me up. And that's what has me go so hard for different money goals, Yeah. So I love that you asked that. And I more women need to be talking about money. It's crazy to me that women aren't talking more about numbers. What are your numbers? I have friends who are they're oh, I'm stressed about money. And I'll be cool. send me a screenshot of your bank info. Like, what's going in? What's coming out? How do you feel about it? Like, let's talk about it. How much are they paying you? Like, here's what I got paid. When's the last time you asked for a raise? Like, why don't you go ask them? And like, I think it's important that we have conversations like this. So I grew up with money. I would not call it like a positive money upbringing, although I think that's true for like the average person. My parents were both lawyers. My dad was in private practice, and then my mom was a federal prosecutor. She was the first female United States attorney in Rhode Island, which is cool. So we were middle class. We weren't like super rich. We weren't super poor, but it's that middle class kind of mindset that I think was a little damaging. And I'm not a victim. Like, I'm good. I'm doing the personal development work to undo that programming. So I don't like hold it against my parents, but my mom did complain about money a lot, and she had a lot of fear about money. So she would say like, we can't afford that. We can't afford that. And I believed her because she was my mom and a position of authority in a lot of ways. So I was like, well, if she's saying we're in financial trouble, we must be in financial trouble. And it was really only the last few years, because she's continued this narrative of like, oh, we don't have enough money. I'm so worried. I don't know if I can afford that. So I started meeting with her financial planner with her. I'm like, what are the numbers? And they did not reflect her story and her fear about the numbers, which I found really interesting. So I think that really that fear did shape a lot of like my feelings about money that I've then had to overcome with personal development.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, okay, so then that's basically, how it all starts, how Margy starts, and then somehow you end up in an NGO or actually a nonprofit. I'm sorry, nonprofit. And tell me, how do you got there, and what made you decide that you wanted to go for profit and kind of like turn that switch around? And how did you meet Jessica, the co-founder and so on?
Yeah. So I got into the nonprofit world because no one else would hire me. Like, it was not like I wanted. I mean, I am a mission-driven person, but I double majored in studio art, painting primarily, and Latin. So not money-making ventures necessarily. And so when I graduated from college, I didn't have, my friends who had studied marketing or pre-med, like they were off on their track. And I was just kind of like, well, I know a dead language and I'm a pretty good painter, but I don't know what I'm going to do with that. So I was on Craigslist and I found a door-to-door canvassing job. And those are like some of the highest turnover positions you can possibly get. And it wasn't, I went in for the interview, and Jess was the one who interviewed me. And I was 22 and she was 23. We were both like pretty fresh out of college. And we talked about cats for the whole interview. And she was like, great, you can come in for your like observation day, which is a test day they do to send you out there and see if you can make money going door to door for the organization. So I fell into it kind of by accident, and realized really fast that I had serious sales skills, that I like loved going door to door. I loved asking for money. I like found that I had like a calm that came over me when I'd be at the door with someone and I was so present with them. And then I would ask, for a high amount. And I was the highest fundraiser in the office because I found that I just found this like flow and presence doing that. And
which is, even though that, a lot of us here listening are making money by selling land. So this is good that you're present with whoever your prospect is in the moment, taking your time, not speed talking, which I tend to do sometimes when I'm trying to get to the sale. You know what I mean?
So, yes. Yeah. And it wasn't all the time. Like sometimes you'd be out on turf, as they call it, canvassing. And, we canvass from 4:30 to about 8:30 every single weekday night. And sometimes it would be like 7:30, 8 p.m. and you would have $0. And the temptation was to panic. And that's when I really started utilizing personal development and seeing the impact it had on real results, because I found that if I got into that panic and got like dollar signs in my eyes, if I just pushed through till 8:30, I would stay at $0. And I was like terrified of being at $0 because I felt a lot of pressure to be the highest fundraiser. So what I started doing is I would sit down on the curb with my little clipboard in my like t-shirt and cut off jean shorts. And I would just take some deep breaths, get present, and then stack my wins. I would just start to think of like the best doors I'd ever had, like the nicest people, the biggest checks I'd ever gotten. And then only once I had totally shifted my energy around would I stand up and go to the next door. And it worked every single time. I always hit my quota and went beyond it. And those lessons of how to be literally on the court, selling in all weather, knocking on doors, and the mindset tools that you develop doing that are really a big part of my success now.
Yeah, because definitely, on either the nonprofit or the profit side, it's that crazy resilience to, push past all the no's and actually look forward to them so that you can actually get quickly to the actual yeses. You know what I mean? So, but it's hard when, when you're there and it could get to your head in terms of, taking it personally versus just saying, okay, it's just another no that I need to get through, in order to get to the yeses. And I need to be in the best mindset in order to meet those yeses, at my best, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Another trick I used to do is like, if I was just getting no, I would ask for something that I knew was an easy yes, just to turn it around and get a yes. So if I was like, will you write a check? And they said, no, I'm not going to donate. Then I'd be like, can I have a bottle of water? And everybody will say yes. If they have bottled water, they'll be like, yeah, all right. Like, I was like 22. They're like, this poor kid. Yeah, hold on. I'll get you a bottle of water. But then I had a yes. And then I could take that to the next door because my energy had shifted.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Interesting. Yes. I love that. It's those little things for sure. Okay. And then you meet at some point, Jess, you ladies decide to team up. And so she was also in the nonprofit world at some point. Yeah. That's how you both met. Okay.
Yeah. So Jess founded the business in 2013. She left the nonprofit world when she had a baby, and her dad is a business coach. So he was like, you can be a virtual assistant. I'll be your first client. And one of the things she was doing for him was booking him on podcasts, because he really saw that opportunity early for leveraging visibility on other people's shows. Mm-hmm. And he helped her niche down the business and form like what was the early version of Interview Connections. Meanwhile, I was obsessed with travel because I'm like freedom obsessed. And at this point, that's like a focus on income and my own time. But at that point, it was really a focus on travel. So I was living in Asia for 2 years, teaching English. And then when my dad died suddenly by suicide, that was a huge crossroads in my life. Oh, and wow. I posted on Facebook from Taiwan because I was living in Asia when my mom Skyped me and told me, and I'm an only child, I'm very, very close with my parents. Like it would really like my whole world shattered. And I needed people to pick up pets for my parents' house because my mom couldn't live there. She moved in with her friend nearby. So I needed these pets out of the house until I could get home from Taiwan. And I posted about it, and Jess was one of the people who commented and said, I'll come pick up a cat and take care of it at my house temporarily. We had been out of touch for years and hadn't really known each other that well. We had just worked together and were connected on Facebook. But that was sort of the beginning of that relationship as it is now.
Wow. Yeah. A huge loss. And then at the same time, God sending you an incredible blessing of an amazing friendship and fellow, warrior in the entrepreneurial world as well. In Jess, I wasn't aware that was how exactly you guys had met. And for anyone, that is watching this or listening to this, if you are in any kind of business and you want visibility, and you know that, the pandemic has affected your opportunities to, speak, personally, and, in places and so on and so forth, we personally also, use Interview Connections services, and we can be more pleased in terms of the caliber of the, of the podcast hosts that you guys connect us with, and our ability to really leverage our time by leaving it to the pros to do all the research on, on however many. I mean, there's got to be millions of podcasts out there, Margy. How many?
There's over 1 million valid podcasts on Apple Podcasts right now.
No, and knowing, which will be a good market, to message connection and so on and so forth. So yeah, you did a post recently, Margy, and I wanted to shift a little bit conversation towards there, and we slightly touched upon it. You did a post recently where you said, I'm not. When I signed up for entrepreneurship, and for the entrepreneurial journey, I signed up for challenge. I signed up for hard. And I didn't sign up, for the government to come and help me, do the things that that I'm supposed to face, that will sculpt my spirit and help me become that next level person that I'm looking to become, and so on and so forth. Can you speak a little bit about that mindset? Because, it's not just something that happens, in the entrepreneurial world, whether you know it or not. If you're an investor, you are an entrepreneur as well. You know what I mean? And that, I think, is one of the biggest reasons why, small business, a huge percentage, over 80%, fail in their first year of business, and an additional smaller percentage make it, into their first 5 years in business. And you ladies have now been how many years in business? I mean,
Almost 8.
Almost 8, exactly. You're almost there at the decade, and you guys have grown tremendously over the last 2 years. And I've seen you. I've been witness to that growth, and it's been such a privilege, to see you ladies succeed. And talk a little bit about the mindset and that has gone into that growth. And then perhaps because in the real estate space, it's also not uncommon to partner, for example, on deals, and and have partnerships. What has made your partnership an unbeatable combination, such that you guys are untouchable, really? So yeah, it's a 2-pronged question, I guess, 2 questions in one.
Yeah, although I do think they're very related, because the thing that has made me successful is the same thing that makes Jess and I's partnership successful. And that really is personal development and personal responsibility, and really taking ownership of your own experience, seeing what's showing up as a mirror for what's going on within you, and you really have to enjoy personal growth if you want to have a successful business. It's not like personal growth is a means to an end and like, okay, I'll do it because I want this business to succeed. You have to be in it for the growth first, because when you are, something going wrong, even though it's crushing and heartbreaking, you have your biggest wins right after that. And like everything I have in my life that is incredible, I got from the worst things that ever happened, like losing my dad, cleaning out their house, which was like this incredibly overwhelming project. But then I learned all these entrepreneurial skills there. So taking personal responsibility and wanting to grow, I think that's really important. And I think if you don't want that, you shouldn't be in business. But if you find that exciting and you're okay with high highs and low lows, and that's fun for you, then being an investor, being a business owner, it's the best personal development journey you could ever go on. And Jess and I have done a lot of personal development together, which is why we're so strong. People are like, and we're on video together all the time. Like if we didn't get along, you would be able to see it, because we're very public facing, but we do get along really well. It's real what you see because we did, the entire Landmark curriculum together. And it doesn't have to be Landmark. It could be Tony Robbins. It could be other immersive transformational experiences. But because we're both committed to personal growth, because we've done personal growth together, it gives us a language to use to communicate. We work with mentors. We have 2 mentors right now. Like, we're investing in personal development, and that helps our relationship with each other. And it also helps us grow a successful business.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we get that, that question all the time, as like, because Jack and I work together, and to be frank, even a lot of our students, are their family businesses, and they, both spouses coming and are working together, and they're like, well, how do you guys do it? And I think, for us, it's always been like clearly defined roles and complementary, and, it's what I normally attribute it to. But the fact that we have gone through all of these personal development experiences together, like if I, decide to join something new and I'm like, Jack, you need to come, because there's no way I'm going to be able to relay that experience unless you're there with me. And so that is so important, that you're growing together. And we get that question a lot. So I'm glad that you asked it, and that you even, talked about how you are for each other a mirror, you know what I mean? And and that is definitely true for sure. I'm sometimes like, darn, if Jack would only do this. Well, he's being a mirror for me. Why is it that I am, that is bothering me about this? And it's so much easier to have that languaging and that distancing to be able to resolve that, and then continue, being friend and spouses. And for you ladies, being friends, you know what I mean? Outside of your partnership in business. Absolutely. So, so important for sure. Now, if you were to say, okay, personal development has been a key ingredient in your success, would you say that faith or cultivating faith in your life has had something to do with it? And how does it look like for you, if it has?
Yeah. So this is interesting. So this is something that I have never spoken about publicly ever, but I will on this show.
We're getting the exclusive.
Yeah. But so I have an interesting relationship with that. I have never liked organized religion. Yeah. Even from the time I was a kid, I've been like, this doesn't feel right. Like, these rules don't feel right. These people saying that they have this type of authority to tell people how to live and what they're telling them, it didn't resonate with me. So I didn't find an organized religion that I really could get behind. So I kind of identified as an atheist, especially when I was younger, because, I was a jerk. But then it really developed into probably more of like an agnostic of like, I don't really know. But then when my dad died, and I never talk about this because it's like kind of weirdly personal for me. And I'm someone who talks about like, I'll show you my like income, but like there's something about faith that I'm so worried that it will be misconstrued, or that people who are in organized religion are going to be like, oh, you're one of us. And I'm like, no. So I just sort of keep it to myself. But when my dad died, he was a hoarder, and I cleaned my parents' house because that was like the gift I could give to my mom. And it was a gigantic 6-bedroom house. Like it was, I had like a 40-acre dumpster. Like it was insanity. And I spent all day, every day for 5 months when I got home from Taiwan, cleaning this house out for my mom. And there were points at that where I was so tested, where everything was just going wrong. And I got to a point where I was lying on the floor. Like I had cleared a tiny space out in the living room. Cause if you've ever seen a hoarded house, there's no surfaces. And that gives me so much anxiety. Like I like clear and open spaces. So growing up in that was very challenging for me. And I just avoided it for a long time until I finally confronted it and cleaned the house. Mm-hmm. And so I had cleared out this little space to do my like at home workout. And then I lay down on my yoga mat. And my friend had just become sober, my best friend, and she took me to an AA meeting. And this girl stood up and shared at the AA meeting. And she was so great. And she said, I've never prayed before because I thought it had to be so profound. And I thought that if my frontal lobes weren't glowing, I wasn't doing it right, which really made me laugh. And she said, but you know what? I started in the morning saying, help me. And at night saying, thank you. And it makes me kind of emotional, but I started doing that and stuff started working out for me. Like the people I needed started showing up. The things that really seemed impossible started getting resolved. And I was able to finish the project and clean the house. I mean, it looked like a model home when I was done. It was like shocking. Mm-hmm. And so I did keep that. And it's like sort of this secret thing. But I do think it's really important. And especially for someone like me who is a driver, like I make things happen. I am a force. And it's so important for me to let go control because that driving can go too far into control. And that's when you start to constrict your results. And so opening back up to like, I can't control everything, being open to divine inspiration. I love Abraham Hicks. I listen to like 30 minutes at least of Abraham Hicks every morning after I meditate. And that language around faith really resonates me. Like I like the idea of connecting with source because there is something about when you get still and centered, you just get these ideas that are so good.
That they can possibly be yours. It's got a divine inspiration. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you give up that ego of like, I had an amazing idea to like, something's happening through me. We had a great call with the Kennys we're both in a group with them. They're so cool. They're such good coaches. And they did this cool exercise where it was like, they kept asking, what are you building? What are you building? And I got past empire and got to the point of, I'm not building anything. It is being built and I'm not doing anything. It is being done. And that's really where I think my power is and everybody's power is.
Wow. Interesting. I love that. I need to check out the Gettys now.
Yeah.
Now, because, we are about investing and investing doesn't necessarily need to be, investing in real estate, investing in a piece of land, but investing in, in mentors and technology. What are some of the best investments that you've made, whether they be money, investments or, stock or mentors, or can you give me what have been your best investments so far where you're like, oh my gosh, this decision changed the trajectory of my life forever?
Everything I've ever invested in, I've seen an incredible ROI because I take personal responsibility for my ROI. Like I cause it. I could invest in a trash can and I'm going to turn that trash can into $100,000. I don't know how, but like, I think that is the mindset that people are missing when they invest because it's like, all right, I'm going to give you this money, but like, you better make it work. And there's a reason that, when angel investors are investing, it's not the idea, it's the person, it's the founder. It's like you're putting your money on them. So you need to be someone who people would put their money on. And then every investment you make, if you say, I'm going to get an ROI from this, you will. Like we've invested in really expensive coaching programs because we're committed to mentorship. And I would say that's my biggest ROI is mentorship. You should have mentors or multiple mentors along the way because it saves you so much time. And if you lose your momentum, your dream dies. And mentorship keeps you going with that momentum until you're strong enough to go alone. So I would say mentorship, but every time we've invested in mentorship or anything else, I've really then like, I'm going to see an ROI from this. Like, I'm going to figure out how to maximize this. I'm going to go to every meeting. I am going to connect with everybody. I am going to be totally present at all this stuff. And so I always see a huge ROI.
That's beautiful. I love the personal responsibility part, because it's not, it's not up to the mentor to see you succeed, but it's up to you to put in the work and to really show up fully, like you said, in networking with the people that are part of, the mentorship, and not necessarily just with the mentor themselves, but really make the most out of the brilliance that they're able to attract and magnetize, to their sphere or to their environment. So I absolutely love that. Now, if you had, three pieces of advice for a woman, starting out in their entrepreneurial journey, whether that be in the investing world or anything else, what would those three pieces of advice be?
I mean, like we said, get a mentor. And I think people overthink that. But if you really are working on being present and meditating or whatever works for you, the people show up. I mean, you're listening to Michelle's podcast right now. Like, she's in your life for a reason. So I just think you don't have to overthink finding a mentor, because when you have personal responsibility that you're going to make an ROI, and you're aligned enough to know that the people coming into your life are there for a reason, I think you can't go wrong. So mentorship, personal development, like, you really need to schedule this in. Like, don't like systematize it, because I've got like a woo-woo creative side, but then I also have a very strong analytical system side. And you really need to systematize this stuff. Like, you have to do it. I meditate for 10 to 15 minutes every morning, no matter what, whether I feel like meditating, whether I don't. Sometimes it's a great experience. Sometimes I'm thinking about my to-do list the whole time, but I still show up. I still do it. And it's not a long time. I mean, 10 to 15 minutes, but that can make all the difference. So it's not binging things. It's small, consistent steps that you actually do every day. And then you can build on top of that. That was two, but I feel like it was also three.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one more for number 3. If you're just getting started, I was just having a conversation with a new entrepreneur, and it needs to be 90% action and 10% thinking in the beginning. Just go, just run. Like, as you get more established, it will change. Then you're like maybe 50% strategy, 50% action. As we keep going, it's more strategy and thinking. But in the beginning, if it's not 90% action and 10% thinking, you're not going to build the momentum that you need. So if you're an overthinker like me, just start sprinting.
Yeah, and that is so important, because that action at the beginning is what creates that momentum, and momentum usually equals cash, and cash will solve a lot of the problems that you might have as immediate, that that you need to figure out in your life. And as that cash comes in, you can have moments of like, okay, let me think about how can I make this cash now come in quicker, easier, faster, and so on and so forth. So it totally shifts, but I think it's a logical progression to go from just like the tactical in getting to action, and then eventually move into strategy and so on. But a lot of us get stuck in not even moving, period. Like you said, analyzing things. So I loved it. I have like little notes that I took down. I don't know if you saw me writing down. I'm like, ooh, that was good. Ooh, that was good. I love the personal responsibility. I like the fact that you talk about, that in context of mentorship, that in the context of partnership within your business, you're being present and stacking your wins, when we feel that we're out of bounds and that things are not going our way, that things seem stuck, that there's some dissatisfaction, and to reminding ourselves, because we tend to forget about our wins, I love that. I'm just so excited that I was able to finally get you here and talk about, your journey. And I thank you so much for sharing about, your faith and how you're cultivating that daily, and opening up about the loss of your father. I've lost my father also when I was very young. I didn't get to meet him. I was 9 months old. So it was a different kind of a experience, when you're already a grown person, and I cannot imagine. And just for being so genuine, so authentic, so honest. If anyone wanted to, that is listening to this and wanted to, reach out to you, get in contact with you, is interested in, has a deep yearning of a message inside that needs to be shared with the world, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So if you're just like, I'm ready, let's do this. I want to get booked on 4 podcasts a month, every single month, then you can go to interviewconnections.com/call and schedule a free strategy consult with our team to talk through your business and your goals and what this would look like. If you're someone who's still kind of getting to know the strategy and you want to learn more, we have a really incredible free Facebook community called the Guest Expert Profit Lab. It's at interviewconnections.com/group. And Jess and I are in there all the time, every week, doing free trainings. It's a really valuable place, and it's a really cool community to network with other successful entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And, in the real estate space, we've had it as we've used this as an opportunity to not just, share our message, for our land flipping educational company, but it's also been an amazing channel for us to do fundraising when it comes to, syndicating larger apartment buildings. It's been a fantastic strategy that, like you said, if you do consistently and you're committed to it, and there's that personal responsibility of showing up for it, whether you're, I wasn't so good at it at the beginning, and then the more that you show up, the better you become, and so on and so forth. It's definitely a game changer. It has been for us. And if you're going to look for someone to, help you with this, these gals are the real deal. Don't go to anyone else out there that claims that they're going to be doing, the level of research and the level of, investment and detail in understanding your message and your brand, so that connection is, really top notch. Don't believe them. They're the real deal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Margy. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
I hope this episode left you feeling inspired and ready to get inflows of cash, inflows of light, and inflows of faith in your life. I welcome your reviews on iTunes. Please leave me a review and help me create an amazing community of women in flow. Thank you, as always, for sharing your voice by going to michellebosch.com and joining the conversation about this show. And while you're there, grab a copy of my 10 Commandments to Living a Life in Flow. You can also follow me on Facebook at Michelle Bosch and on Instagram at Michelle Bosch Official. Thank you very much, and until the next one.